Now in Job chapter 12 verse 7, there's an interesting verse, and verse 8. But now ask the beasts, and they will teach you. And the birds of the air, and they will tell you. Or speak to the earth, and it will teach you. And the fish of the sea will explain it to you. I found this rather a fascinating verse. So I went to the beasts, and I went to the birds, and I went to the fish, and I said, excuse me, could you please explain circumstances to me? And of course, they can't do it with their vernacular. They can't use their voice to tell me what the situation is, but I can study their biology and their anatomy, and perhaps they can tell me something. And so, for example, if you look at a fish, and you look at its kidney, there are its internal structures. It has all the organs of other creatures, and it has a kidney. And in that kidney, there's a structure which is called the glomerulus. Fascinating structure, and mammals have kidneys with Malpighian bodies and glomeruli, and these structures serve as ultrafiltration systems. So the blood comes in via this vessel, breaks up into capillaries, which means when the blood comes in via a big vessel, breaks up into small ones. It's like putting a kink in a hose pipe. With the water coming in, what do you notice? What does your hose pipe do? It swells. Now, if it was slightly porous, the water would leak out, and the same thing happens in a glomerulus. The water leaks out, and the blood supply goes through an efferent arteriole, which is smaller, so that there's constant pressure in the structure. And this structure constantly ultrafiltrates liquid and gets rid of it in the form of urine. Now the problem is that the fish are supposed to have evolved in the sea. And in the sea, the water is concentrated because there's salt in the water. So the concentration of the sea is about 2/3 higher than it is in the fish. So the concentration in the sea is about 1,000 milliosmolar, and the fish is about 350 milliosmolar. So it's about 1/3 as salty as the sea. Consequence, the fish is constantly losing water by osmosis. So the fish is dehydrating. So the way to augment its supply is to drink water. But it's drinking seawater. So now it needs desalinators. So in the gills, there are desalinators which get rid of the salt, so that they actually desalinate the salt. But if the kidney were to produce this vast amount of liquid, and it was to lose this liquid as well, the fish would not survive in the sea. So here's the problem. The fish in the sea, in its kidney, has structures which it cannot survive with. So what does it do? Well, the solution is to become functionally aglomerular, to switch the system off so they contract this blood vessel so that the structure doesn't work. So it has the structure, but it doesn't use it. Now, if the fish were to go up a freshwater stream like the salmon does from the sea up a river, now the story is reversed. Now it's in fresh water, and it is more salty than the fresh water, so water comes into the fish via osmosis, and it has to get rid of the water. Now without this structure, it would explode in fresh water, so it needs it. Question: if the fish evolved in the sea, as most evolutionary science presupposes, then why did it develop a structure that it cannot use unless it is in fresh water? Or what is the probability that the sea was not always salty? Is that a possibility? Have we a changed system? So by asking the fish, is it possible that conditions were different in the past to what they are now? The fish, via its glomerulus, tells me, yes, they were different. And if you read the biblical paradigm, you'll see that structures and environmental conditions changed because of calamities that were introduced which the Bible talks about, such as the universal flood. Now, just for interest's sake, if we look at a mammalian kidney with this structure, the glomerulus, and the possibility here of concentrating the urine, this structure over here, this Malpighian body with this loop of Henle, is so complicated. It has so many enzyme systems which make one side permeable and the other side impermeable, and enzyme gates, and you name it. It is highly complex. And the interesting thing is, it cannot function at all if it doesn't have this configuration. So there's no incremental way of changing it from one that cannot produce concentrated urine to one that can. It has to be perfect. We call that irreducible complexity. It cannot develop slowly. So these structures tell me that there is a design attached to them, because they cannot evolve over time. So the animals, by studying them, can give us information that can change our paradigms.